Baker, the touchdown maker, living up to that nickname. A guy that went absolutely off in the opener against the Washington Commanders, who right now rock bottom in pass EPA defense, number 32 in the National Football League. And again, I think they're going to live at least in the bottom three in that category all season long. What did Mayfield do? 24-30, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a single INT, chipped in double-digit rush yards as well, 9.6 pass yards per attempt. Numero tres, an adjusted completion percentage. Baker Mayfield, he gets Detroit coming up. And then he falls with Denver and Philadelphia. Are you buying Baker Mayfield? Was it a breakout for the rest of the season, or is it more of a fake-out performance? Horvat, your thoughts?
I'm going to go with breakout. I'm starting to believe and I'm starting to buy in on what's going on in Tampa Bay. And coming into the season, Brad, I thought there was going to be a regression with the new play caller coming in. But I got to be honest, man, the offensive line looks better. You know, Mike Evans is still awesome. And Baker last season finished as QB9. Was drafted a little bit lower in fantasy leagues this year, which makes sense because of all the question marks and, you know, people thinking that there was going to be a regression. And I know it's only one game, but like you said, man, he was QB2. He completed 24 or 30 passes, 4 touchdowns, and he's got this matchup coming up against Detroit. So I love him this week. Detroit allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks last season. And again, like what I liked about Baker is the skill position players. You know, we talked about Bucky Irving. We obviously know all about Mike Evans, but I mean, like, lowest average target depth in the league, 5.1 yards, meaning his receivers got chunk yardage after the catch. They got the yak. I like the skill position players there. I'm starting to buy in on Baker. You know, everything, all the reports, all summer long. He's more of a leader. He's more mature. He just had a baby girl. He's married. He's in the best shape of his life. He looks like a G.I. Joe out there. Baker was always kind of like a little bit thicker. You know, he's a guy's guy in that locker room. Everybody buys into him. Everybody loves him. And, yeah, man, I'm starting to buy into Baker and Tampa in a weak division. And I think he'll be top 10 again in fantasy. Yeah, so I think I'm buying Baker Mayfield. Famous last words.
Yeah, I think more or less a semi-breakout for me. I think he's going to be maybe top 15. I think top 10 is a little bit bullish. You know, the progressive, television actor we saw in commercials, that was his calling card, really his claim to fame during his NFL career as a member of the Cleveland Browns. And he's got a second lease, really a third lease on life. He, had a little bit of a renaissance revival there in Los Angeles with the Rams before coming over with the Shiver Me Timbers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as Parlay Pete's favorite team. Here is the other thing I'll add to this. Yeah, I like the upcoming schedule. You mentioned Detroit, number 22 in EPA pass defense in week 1. They got a young secondary, talented, but it's going to take a while for them to really come together and galvanize. Denver, they got a ton of issues. Number 15 in pass EPA-D in week 1. I think they're going to be largely pushovers this season. In Philadelphia, we'll talk about a sickly secondary last year. Now, they made some upgrades in the offseason, but they were number 18 at pass EPA in the opener down in Brazil against Green Bay. So some, question marks defensively with the upcoming opponents that he's got. So, yeah, he could certifiably be a top 10 guy in the near term, but long term, he's going to probably have some down performances that will drag the overall value down in that probably 10 to 15 range when it's all said and done. However, I will say this. The Buccaneers secondary is already hurting. Antoine Winfield, their star safety, it looks like he's going to miss some time. Bryce Hall, their starting cornerback, he is going to be out, I think, for a large chunk, if not the entire season. So there could be some negative game scripts, which, of course, supports and buoys fantasy production. So maybe you're right, man. Maybe Baker Mayfield, whether he's cleaning up in competitive time or garbage time, is going to be a top 10 quarterback, but I think it's going to be more top 15. So, again, semi-breakout for me. All right, let's move on to the running back position. Breakout or fake out with the man of the night last night until the post-game interview. Jordan Mason, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with semi-breakout because eventually Christian McCaffrey's coming back. Although, man, I'm a little worried about C-Mac. San Francisco, Jordan Mason found out on Friday night that he was going to be starting that game. There is a fine coming your way, Kyle Shanahan. When you look at it, 464 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. But now Christian McCaffrey's out, and he's not going to play week 2 most likely, especially with it being a short week. They have to travel to Minnesota. So I do like this matchup. 147 rushing yards on 28 carries. Shocked he got the 28 carries. Scored a touchdown, also had 1 reception for 5 yards. So not really the same skill set as a Christian McCaffrey. But what I liked was the next-gen stats, the NFL's next-gen stats stuff that I saw. Rushed for 30 yards over expectation, had a success rate of 46.4%, got stuffed only twice, and had 5 runs or 10 or more yards. And that's against the Jets defense. And I know we have some concerns about the interior of that Jets offensive line. Hassan Reddick's not there. But, yeah, man, like this matchup coming up against Minnesota until C-Mac's back. I like Jordan Mason. Even when Christian McCaffrey does come back, you're probably going to want to limit some of those touches. It's Super Bowl or bust for San Francisco. They've made a deep run 3 years in a row now. And they could use McCaffrey in different ways, line him up in the slot, have him catch more balls out of the backfield. I think Jordan Mason's going to continue to get touches this season. So I would definitely pick him up if he's still available in your league.
Look, man, I think he's a definite breakout in my opinion. And here's the reason why. I understand where you're coming from with a semi-breakout, but the Achilles tendonitis is something that could flare up yet again now for Christian McCaffrey. And the CMC football factory, the conveyor belt there, they're cranking out poop emojis already because you probably took him a number 1 overall in your fantasy football league, and you're sorely regretting it if you didn't bring the old fuzzy handcuffs and tied it to one Jordan Mason. Mason was a bee's knees last night, my man. 28 carries, 147 yards, a touchdown on the ground, 1 catch, 5 yards, and I find the end zone through the air. But number 9 in yards after contact per attempt, 3.43 this week, as tracked by Pro Football Focus. He had 9 missed tackles and 28 attempts. You already rolled out the next-gen stats as well for support. McCaffrey could be back in a couple of weeks, but maybe he plays a couple of games, and that injury, it flares back up again, and then he's got exit stage left for 2 or 3 games. Maybe it happens during the fantasy playoffs when you need him the most. Jordan Mason is going to continuously be a difference maker in phases throughout this entire year. If you grabbed him off waivers, if you're shelling out Fab Cash tonight, break the freaking bank for him. He could push you over the edge and over the top in your fantasy football league this season. Are you buying or selling what occurred on Monday Night Football for either or both franchises?
Yes. And no. At the same time for both teams. Like, I love what I saw out of San Francisco. It was grit, resilience. And it's like, let's not forget, Ayuk dropped what should have been a touchdown. That game could have even been more out of hand. At the same time, no, you're not convincing me Jordan Mason's pulling off that performance every week. I'm glad he did, because when I ended up with CMC in the first round, nobody gives a damn about my fantasy team. I'm going to talk about it anyway because you can't stop me. I mean, you could, just don't. I got CMC in the first round, and then I grabbed him in a 20-man league because I'm a psychopath. Don't do that.
Yes.
Grab Mason later just in case CMC went down, right? I'm always going to – well, here we go. He gets inactive an hour before the game. Ended up winning the fantasy game by like 0.75 points thanks to my guy.
Oh,
but
bravo.
But thank you very much. 1-0. I don't expect to win another damn game, but I'm 1-0, and I'm gonna ride that high until Thursday night. Okay. I don't expect that guy to be able to do that week in, week out, right? If he could, he would be doing that week in, week out somewhere for somebody. All right. So I don't think you can lean on that, but you're going to get Debo more involved. You're going to get Ayuk more comfortable. I genuinely believe ring rust is real, and teams that do not play in the preseason, like, this is a strategy a lot of coaches enacted. And go look at the teams that didn't play their guys in preseason, the Atlanta Falcons, the New York Jets, the Carolina Panthers. They all stank week 1. Like, I think it matters. So I think San Francisco will get more caught up. The Jets, I honestly, and I might be the only one, never believed in the Jets. Never. I'm sorry. Like, I know Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, but why do we talk about Aaron Rodgers like he's 26 and not 41? Why do we talk about Aaron Rodgers like he's in his prime and not a guy with a rubber band for an Achilles that's coming back? And I like the rest of the team, but as Cody Decker loves to say, man, if you get your hopes up and then crushed by the Jets, at this point, isn't it kind of your fault? Like, I'm on team, I'll believe in the Jets when they give me a damn reason to believe in them. I'm sorry, Fireman Ed or whoever you are.